All right, so get this. Today's deep dive, it's gonna be a wild one. We're looking at this excerpt from a book, and it's about this Swami, right? The spiritual master who used to fight tigers, like full-grown Bengal tigers, with his bare hands, no weapons, no tricks, just pure strength and willpower.
It's amazing, right? Like something out of a comic book.
Yeah, totally.
What I find fascinating about this story, though, is it's not just about like brawls in the jungle. It really gets into the power of the human mind, and the potential that I think we all have to like transform ourselves, even when we're up against these like crazy obstacles. And then like throughout the whole thing, there's this element of mysticism, like this idea that maybe there's more to reality than we can see.
So the story starts with our narrator and his friend Chandi. They're like on this quest to meet the Tiger Swamis, right? And you can just feel the anticipation building as they're traveling to his home. And when they finally meet him, well, he's not exactly the peaceful, incense-burning Swami you might picture.
Right. Like the author really goes out of their way to describe his physique.
Yeah.
He's got this tremendous body, these football-like biceps, this fierce yet calm face. It's like they're setting us up for a superhero story almost.
Yeah.
Like, get ready, here comes the incredible feats of strength.
And then when they ask him about his tiger fighting days, his response is just so casual, He's like, oh, fighting tigers, no big deal. They're like pussycats to me.
There's this great contrast there between his looks and his tone. He sounds almost playful, a little mischievous even. It makes you wonder if he's messing with them. But then he goes and proves his point in a pretty dramatic way.
The wall-breaking demonstration, he punches a brick out of a solid wall just like that.
Wait, can you imagine what the narrator and his friend must have been thinking?
Jaws on the floor.
Right.
I mean, what else could you do?
It's like this powerful way to show the idea that what you believe can actually affect your body. Like we see this in psychology today, even in the placebo effect. There are studies that show when people believe they're getting a treatment, even if it's just a sugar pill, their bodies can actually change physically.
And then he gets into his backstory, right? Like, he wasn't always this superhuman strongman. He started out pretty weak, actually, but through just willpower and training, he completely transformed himself. It's like the classic underdog story, the one we all love, about overcoming our limitations.
Totally. And it's interesting how even the narrator, for a second, he gets caught up in this fantasy of becoming a tiger fighter. But the Swami, he kind of redirects him. He says that the real battles are the ones we fight inside ourselves, against our inner tigers, those fears, those doubts, the stuff that holds us back.
And that's where the story takes this really interesting turn. It goes from being about tiger wrestling to being about this like inner spiritual journey. We learn about his turning point, the moment that sets him on this new path.
Yeah, it follows like a classic story structure. Rising action leading to a climax. His father warns him about his pride, and then there's this prophecy. It foreshadows a future injury and a spiritual awakening. It's like a ticking clock, adding suspense.
Then things really ramp up. A prince challenges the Swami to fight his prize tiger, Raja Begum. And there are all these rumors that this tiger is possessed by a demon. It just adds a whole other level to the story.
This is where the cultural context becomes really important. Like in Indian mythology, tigers are a big deal. They represent power, ferocity, sometimes even the divine. And there's this fascination with feats of strength, with courage. So this fight, it wasn't just entertainment. It was like a test, a demonstration of overcoming fear.
The fight itself is described in such detail. The fear, the violence, the sheer brutality of it all. The Swami is pushed to his absolute limit, injured, bleeding. It's a really close call, but in the end, he wins.
But what's interesting is the turning point in the fight. It's like this symbolic moment, right? The Swami forces the tiger's jaws open and looks right into its mouth. It's like he's staring fear itself in the face. This image of conquering your deepest fears and coming out changed.
And that's exactly what happens to him. After the fight, he's rewarded, praised, but something in him has shifted. He realizes that true victory isn't about beating tigers. It's about taming the wild things in your own heart.
It's like this perfect example of how adversity can change you. What seems like a story about strength and spectacle actually has these deeper layers. It reminds us that even when things are really tough, we can grow and change.
Yeah, it's almost like his actual injuries, like they mirrored what was happening inside him. He spends 6 months recovering from blood poisoning, and it's during this time that he really embraces the spiritual path. What do you think that means for him, and for us as we're thinking about this story?
That's a really interesting question. For the Swami, this recovery time is like a symbolic death and rebirth. He leaves behind his old life, the tiger fighting, and seeks out the holy man. the one who made that prophecy about his transformation years earlier. This part of the story, it reminds me that sometimes we need to go through these dark times, like periods of struggle, to come out stronger, more aligned with our purpose. Have you ever felt that way? Like a tough experience led you somewhere better?
Oh yeah, totally. I think we all have those moments looking back. And what seemed like a setback actually put us on a path to something amazing.
Exactly. And it's interesting how this holy man, he just appears almost like magic. Like he was summoned by the Swami's desire for guidance. He becomes his guru, and introduces him to yoga and spiritual discipline.
So are they saying that embracing a spiritual path always means things like yoga, and formal practices? Or could it be something more personal, more individual?
That's a great question. I mean, the story focuses on yoga and stuff, but I think it's pointing to something bigger. This idea that we each have our own path, and sometimes the most unexpected things can guide us towards it. It's not about following rules, but about being open to the journey, trusting there's a bigger plan.
It makes me think about all those times I've felt lost, uncertain, and then suddenly an opportunity appears, a connection that changes everything. It's like there's this invisible hand guiding us, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And notice how the story ends with the Swami and his guru heading to the Himalayas, this place associated with enlightenment, transcendence. It's a fitting end to a story that started with such earthly things, strength, power, survival, and then it evolved into something so much deeper.
I gotta say, I'm pretty blown away by this Tiger Swami. I mean, the courage to face those tigers is incredible, but it's his inner transformation that I find so compelling. Like, he conquers this tiger within himself. And that's a battle I think we can all relate to, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. What's so great about this story is that it works on multiple levels. On the surface, it's an adventure. But underneath, there's this profound message about willpower, transformation, the human spirit. It makes us think about what tigers we're facing in our own lives and how we can use our inner strength to overcome them.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into this story of the Tiger Swami, I'm left with so many questions. What about you? What do you think are some of those inner tigers that we all face? Were they like those deep fears or doubts or those habits that sabotage us?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? It's different for everyone, but the struggle is something we all share. Like, are you, the listener, letting fear hold you back from chasing your dreams? Are you wrestling with those negative thoughts that keep you stuck? Or maybe it's procrastination, that tiger that always seems to derail your plans.
Right. It's like he gives us this roadmap, for transformation, this reminder that we can face those inner tigers and change our lives. But I'm wondering, how do we channel that same willpower that the Tiger Swami had? How do we apply it to our own internal battles?
I think it starts with being aware, like recognizing those patterns, those tendencies that aren't helping us, those tigers that are holding us back, and paying attention to our inner voice, that little whisper that might be guiding us.
So it's not enough to just think about it, right? We got to take action. Just like the Swami, he didn't just sit around thinking about tigers, he went into the cage and faced them. What's that look like for us in our daily lives?
It can be anything, really, like finally starting that project you've been putting off, or having that tough conversation you've been avoiding, or just choosing to be more positive. It's about taking those small steps that move you forward.
That makes sense. But what about when things go wrong? Because transformation isn't always easy. There will be doubts, maybe even times when we fail. How do we handle those and keep going?
That's so important. It's key to remember that transformation is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, twists and turns, but like the Tiger Swami, we can learn from those experiences and become stronger. It's about seeing challenges as chances to grow and never giving up on ourselves.
This whole deep dive has been incredible, just a powerful reminder that we're capable of amazing things, physically and mentally. It's like the Swami story gives us permission to believe in ourselves, to believe in our own potential to grow and change.
I totally agree. As you go about your day, I want you to think about those tigers you might be facing. What can you do to tame them? What's inside you that can help you win? Remember, you have strength and wisdom within you. Tap into that and you'll be amazed by what you can achieve.
Thank you for listening till the end. Please subscribe, turn on the notifications, like, comment, and share with your friends. This will help more listeners to discover our channel and content.